You okay there, Bill? Wife made spaghetti for dinner.
Seemed ashamed to barf it up.
Gambling problem, I heard.
You don't say.
I heard drugs.
I heard he slept with a 13.
For Pete's sake, Bob, don't spread rumors. No, it was gambling.
Hey, this is Carolyn, and you're watching the New Music Buzz, and I have Jeff Russo here. Thank you for letting us hang out in your studio. Hello.
You're very welcome. I like to open my door and just let anybody in.
Oh,
you know.
Yeah, so we heard.
Yeah, you guys are kind of like riffing. I don't know what's happening.
You are best known for being in the Grammy-nominated band Tonic.
That is correct.
That is correct. But you've made your name in television and film. How does one go from rock band to scoring a major television series like Fargo?
There's a lot of luck involved, I think. I think that there's a lot of luck. You know, I just started working for a good friend of mine. Her name is Wendy Melvoin. She's of the duo Wendy and Lisa. Okay. Everybody knows who they are. They were in Prince's band a long time ago. Now they are very well known in the film and television world. And I went to work for them like 6, 7 years ago. 8 years ago. What year is it? And I just sort of started doing it with them and doing it for them, I should say. And you know, eventually just started to get hired on my own to do it. And then the balance sort of shifted away from doing shows with the band and more to working in the studio doing film and television. But I'm trying to find that right balance, you know, and continuing doing music with the band.
Well, how different is doing the composing for television and film as opposed to rocking out in a rock band?
It's, you know, there's not as much ego stroking involved, that's for sure. There are similarities and there are some major differences. Obviously, you know, in the studio, I'm sitting here writing all the music and doing it pretty much on my own, as opposed to having collaborators, you know, band singer and bass player and other people writing music with me. But the process of writing a song and writing a score for me it sort of comes from the same place. You know, instead of there being a singer singing lyrics, there's a person saying dialogue. So I'm sort of using that as the basis for how to form the music parts and where to put them and stuff.
Elaborate more on that. I mean, tell me more about that process.
If I look at picture and I want to treat the narrative as the most important part, which is the same thing as treating a lyric as the most important part. So you definitely don't want to step on that. Right. You definitely want to give it its space and support it and make sure that the emotion that it's trying to convey is supported. So in that way, they're very similar. In many other ways, it's very different. Like I'm not writing rock and roll scores all the time, so I don't have my guitar out and I'm not playing that way. Sometimes I do. It sort of depends on the project. But like with Fargo, you know, it's really just it was about writing a melody and then sort of figuring out what the harmonies were going to be, and then all of a sudden I was like, oh yeah, okay, so I put this with the strings and do it with this, and then I had this big 60-piece orchestra playing these melodies that I wrote.
What, you were just not pressing a button and, you know, all this music was just coming out? You actually used an orchestra?
I did. I felt like we really had to do that to get the cinematic vibe.
Taking it back to the old school here, Jeff.
Yeah, I like to take it back. You know, I feel like sometimes you can just do it with a computer, and sometimes you really need to have a person put a hand on an instrument or a hand on a synthesizer or something, and not just press a button in a computer.
Well, most television soundtracks or scores, it's usually, you know, compiled of, you know, already pre-recorded songs, you know, that different artists collaborate, and this is what they choose to use as a television soundtrack. How was Fargo different? Why did they make the decision to have somebody score it? Because that's not the norm in most television series.
Well, you know, there's always an underscore. There's always somebody weaving the scenes together with music that really you don't really notice. Right. You know, part of a job of a television composer is to support the scene with music, but not really get in the way and not really have anybody notice, oh, what's that music? The way we did Fargo, we treated it way more like a movie where the music had its own voice and that became a character in the show. We don't use a ton of music. The show runs about 55 minutes, and maybe we did about 15 minutes of music per episode. But when music plays, that's all that's going on. It's just you see the picture and you're hearing music, as opposed to playing along with dialogue and stuff. So we made a conscious decision to have music be an important part of the show because music is a very important part of movies, very important part of the narrative.
Right.
And to use it the way it's used in movies in a television setting was sort of unique. So we wanted to do that. There are a few songs that we've used in the show, but not many. I think we used a total of like 6 or 7 songs the entire season.
That's 10 episodes.
It's a lot of music. I think I wrote about 7 hours worth of music for the show, over 10 episodes, which is actually a lot because I wrote a lot more than we ended up using because I was writing for an orchestra. I figured I might as well make these pieces a lot bigger, and then we can figure out how we can edit it down to make it work with pictures.
For the extended soundtrack for later.
And that is really what we did. Like, I put about an hour's worth on a soundtrack.
Tell me, what other projects have you worked on that, you hold near and dear to your heart?
I treat every project near and dear to my heart. I feel like, the only way to really make it creatively worthwhile is to find something that I really love about what I'm doing and then do that a lot. I did this show for Starz Network called Power, which is airing now on Saturdays. It's a much different way of thinking in terms of doing score for television than it was working on Fargo, because the music is really about just supporting the vibe of the show as opposed to making a musical statement, because the show consists of a lot of songs. Right. So because of that, it's the songs and the narrative that are making the big statement, and the score is really sort of just staying out of the way and really just creating the vibe that we wanted to be in.
Kind of enveloping, but not being too in your face.
That's exactly right. And finding a way to do that in a way that I love is also challenging. So there isn't really one thing or one project that I'm like, oh, this is near and dear to my heart. Obviously, I have a soft spot in my heart for Fargo because I get to write the kind of music that I really, really enjoy writing. Mm-hmm. This orchestral music has become really sort of a part of my everyday thinking. I listen to it a lot, and I grew up listening to classical music. My dad used to play Beethoven and stuff in the house. Even though I've been in a rock band, I have really this underlying desire to hear strings and horns and voices and stuff.
Voices, you heard that? He hears voices.
I do hear voices in my head. Is that weird? Is that bizarre?
Speaking of the rock band, what's going on?
We continue to make music. We're going to make a record this summer. We're playing shows this summer. We are out and playing. Like, we're playing here in Los Angeles in July, and we're playing sort of all over the country over the course of the summer. And we do that every summer because there are people out there who still want to see us play. So we love to go out and do it. And it is a thing that I feel like I need to do. Because that's where I began everything.
Because you're so well-rounded, Jeff.
Yeah. I don't know about well-rounded, but it's part of the fabric of my, like, what I need to do. Like, I need to pick up my guitar and just write songs. That's something I love to do.
Well, if we wanted to find you and your music, where could we do that?
You can find it in a lot of different places. Tonic has records on iTunes, and there's CDs, and we're playing everywhere. And they just released the soundtrack to Fargo on Sony, so there are CDs everywhere, and there's iTunes. You can download it, and you can find it on my website and my band's website and many other websites around
on the internet.
Interwebs, exactly.
Well, I really enjoyed hanging out in your studio. This place is phenomenal. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Well, my name is Carolyn. This is Jeff Russo, and you're watching the New Music Buzz.
Hey, I'm Jeff Russo, and you've just been buzzed.